btsnewstoday.it started with silence. The kind of silence that hums in the air before a secret becomes too heavy to hold. And then, a soft piano note, delicate yet trembling, drifted across the stage lights of Seoul. When Park Jimin appeared, the air itself seemed to bend toward him. For months, fans had whispered about the song, Be Mine, a melody that had existed only as a rumor, a title scribbled once in the corner of a producer's notebook, a name that kept appearing on playlists that were quickly deleted. The speculation was endless. Was it a love song? A letter? Or something Jimin had written during those sleepless nights after the group's hiatus, when he said he was learning to find his voice again? Tonight, he didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The music spoke for him. The crowd at the intimate Seoul Arts Hall was small, barely 400 people, mostly journalists, producers, and a few selected army members chosen through what HYB described as a private listening experience. But even the label's statement couldn't prepare anyone for what was about to unfold. When the stage dimmed and a single spotlight caught Jimin's silhouette, time seemed to pause as he stood still, head slightly lowered, wearing an oversized black shirt and a single silver chain that caught the faintest glimmer of light. The first lyric fell from his lips like a confession. You were the reason I couldn't sleep, the echo I never escaped. The audience gasped, not because it was a performance, but because it felt like a revelation. The tenderness in his tone was almost fragile, yet every word carried the weight of someone who had waited too long to say what he truly felt. People who attended described it as hauntingly honest. One music critic from Dispatch Korea wrote later that evening, Be Mine doesn't sound like Jimin is performing. It sounds like he's remembering. As the song unfolded, memories seemed to fill the room. Jimin's voice rose and fell with the piano, trembling in moments, breaking open in others. Behind him, a projection screen showed abstract visuals, blurry footage of ocean waves, a faint silhouette of someone walking away, and a handwritten phrase that flashed briefly. It wasn't goodbye, it was just silence. And that was the moment the audience realized Be Mine wasn't just a new song. It was a story. Backstage sources later confirmed that Jimin had been working on Be Mine for over 2 years. The title was first seen in a private HYB document leaked accidentally during a 2023 software update. At the time, fans assumed it was a demo meant for another artist. What no one knew was that Jimin had written it himself, quietly, secretly, between tour rehearsals and late-night recording sessions in his Seoul apartment at a producer who had worked closely with him. Speaking to the Korea Times under anonymity, described the process as emotional, almost painful. Jimin doesn't write songs the way others do, the source explained. He doesn't sit down to create. He waits until something hurts enough to be turned into melody. The song, they said, had been finished months ago, but Jimin refused to release it. He called it too personal. That's why tonight felt so unreal. Watching him finally perform Be Mine. It was like witnessing someone open a diary they had promised never to show. As the song reached its middle section, Jimin's tone shifted. The quiet tenderness gave way to something fierce, desperate, almost pleading. If I let you go, would I still be me? He sang, eyes glistening beneath the stage lights. For a moment, it was unclear whether he was singing to a lover, to his past self, or to the audience who had followed him through years of transformation. There was no choreography, no flashy lighting. Only his voice, raw and trembling, and the gentle echo of the piano that seemed to breathe along with him. When the bridge came, Jimin closed his eyes. A soft instrumental swelled behind him, strings and ambient synths that wrapped around his voice like a sigh. And then came the line that no one was prepared for. I wanted to be yours, but I forgot how to be mine. The room broke. Some people cried quietly. Others just stared, motionless, realizing the weight of what he had said. Later that night, Dispatch described it as the line that will echo for years. After the performance, Jimin didn't bow. He didn't even wait for applause. He whispered, barely audible, "Thank you for waiting," and left the stage. The applause that followed was thunderous, but delayed, as if everyone needed a few seconds to remember how to breathe. Within minutes, social media exploded. Hashtag #BeMine by Jimin became the top trending hashtag worldwide. Fans around the world tried to decode every lyric, every symbol, every pause. Many pointed out that the visuals behind him resembled scenes from Busan. the coastal city where Jimin was born, and that the waves could symbolize the past he never fully left behind. Others claimed that the anonymous figure walking away in the projection was Jungkook, sparking thousands of fan theories and emotional posts that flooded Weverse and X, formerly Twitter. HYB refused to comment. When contacted by several media outlets, a spokesperson only said, "Jimin wanted this moment to speak for itself. There will be an official release soon." But fans knew there was more. Behind the scenes, a different story was unfolding. According to multiple insiders, Jimin had decided to perform Be Mine just 2 days before the event. Originally, he was scheduled to perform his previously released song, Like Crazy, for a special acoustic showcase. But during rehearsals, he reportedly sat down at the piano and began playing the opening chords to Be Mine, something he hadn't done in public before. One staff member recalled the moment vividly. He didn't say anything. He just played. Everyone in the room froze. It was like he was somewhere else, like he wasn't rehearsing, he was remembering. When he finished, no one spoke for a long time. Then he said, "I think I'm ready now." That single line, "I think I'm ready now," marked the beginning of a performance that would redefine how fans saw him. The next morning, Korean entertainment outlets were filled with headlines. Jimin's hidden song finally revealed, Be Mine, the most vulnerable moment in BTS history. Dispatch exclusive, Jimin's emotional confession through music. Even the Korea Herald described it as a love letter wrapped in pain. But what truly broke the internet wasn't the song itself. It was a 10-second clip posted by a fan who had been sitting near the front row. The clip showed Jimin pausing halfway through the song, looking out into the audience, and smiling faintly before whispering, "This one's for you." That single sentence fueled thousands of interpretations. Who was you? Some fans believed it was for ARMY, the fandom that had supported him unconditionally. Others speculated it was directed toward Jungkook, referencing their long friendship and emotional bond that had inspired countless discussions and fan projects. Theories spread like wildfire, with many pointing out that the melody of Be Mine subtly echoed the harmonic structure of Jungkook's solo Still With You. Whether intentional or not, the emotional connection was undeniable. That a week later, HYB quietly uploaded an official teaser on YouTube. The thumbnail showed a black and white photo of Jimin standing near the sea, with the caption, "Be Mine, coming soon." No date, no description, just his silhouette, the sound of waves, and that same haunting line, "I wanted to be yours, but I forgot how to be mine." Within hours, the teaser reached over 15 million views. Fans flooded the comment section with tears, gratitude, and messages like, "Jimin, thank you for being honest. And this song healed something I didn't know was broken." Industry insiders began comparing Be Mine to legendary solo moments in Korean pop history, songs that blurred the line between art and emotion. Music critic Kim Soo-jin wrote in Naver Culture Weekly, "Be Mine feels like the true evolution of Jimin as an artist. It's no longer about choreography or perfection, it's about truth. You can hear the years of pressure, love, loss, and resilience in every note." Even Jungkook, during a livestream days later, subtly referenced the song. When fans asked if he had heard it, he smiled softly and said, "It's beautiful. It's Jimin." The internet, predictably, exploded again. Yet beneath all the noise, there was still that quiet heartbeat. The reason Jimin wrote Be Mine in the first place, in a short interview released a few days after the performance, he finally spoke about it. "I didn't write it to impress anyone," he said softly. "I wrote it to understand myself. I think, sometimes, when you give so much love, to music, to fans, to people, you forget where your own heart belongs. Be Mine was me trying to find it again." The interviewer asked if he found it. Jimin smiled faintly. "Maybe I'm still looking," he whispered. Weeks passed, but the echo of that one night refused to fade. Armies across the world began covering the song using snippets of the melody that had leaked online. Artworks, fan edits, and emotional letters flooded social media. At fan gatherings, people played the piano intro quietly before singing along to Jimin's words, their voices trembling in unison. In Seoul, near HYB's headquarters, a group of fans created a mural, a massive painting of Jimin standing near the ocean, his silhouette merging with waves. At the bottom, in bold white letters, they wrote, "Be Mine, forever yours. And somewhere in the quiet of a late-night studio, Jimin was still working, quietly, patiently, the way he always did. Because for him, Be Mine wasn't just a song. It was a moment of truth, a bridge between who he was and who he's becoming. That night in Seoul will be remembered not as a performance, but as an awakening. The moment Park Jimin stopped hiding behind perfection and simply let himself be human. And maybe that's what makes Be Mine unforgettable. It wasn't about being someone else's. It was about finally daring to be his OW and NO bullet points. Only flowing emotional prose, dispatch-style intensity, and the sound of truth echoing through every line. When the lights of the Seoul Arts Hall finally dimmed and the world returned to its ordinary rhythm, Jimin didn't go home. While the staff wrapped cables and the last of the journalists packed their cameras, he slipped quietly into a back hallway, away from the noise. His footsteps echoed softly across the linoleum floors, each one a faint reminder of what he had just done. Something he had feared and postponed for years. In the dressing room, his reflection stared back at him from the mirror. Not the superstar version seen on magazine covers, but something rawer. His eyeliner had smudged slightly, and the edges of his lips still trembled with adrenaline. He sat down slowly, took a breath, and whispered to his reflection, "You did it." No one heard. The room was empty except for a single bouquet of white roses sitting on the counter. No card, no name, just the flowers, pure and wordless. He didn't have to check. He already knew who sent them. For years, Jungkook had been the silent witness to Jimin's most vulnerable moments. The first time Jimin played the rough demo of Be Mine was not in a studio or for a producer. It was in Jungkook's apartment, sometime in early 2023 that night. According to a close friend of both artists, the two had met for dinner after months apart. The group was still adjusting to solo schedules, the silence between members heavier than either wanted to admit. After a long talk about the future, Jimin walked over to Jungkook's small home studio and asked, almost shyly, "Can I try something?" He played the piano loop, soft, uncertain, and began to hum what would become the first verse of Be Mine. Jungkook didn't say anything at first. When the melody ended, he just sat there, eyes glistening in the dim studio light, and whispered, "Hyung, this feels different." Jimin smiled weakly. "Because it is." From that night on, Be Mine became a ghost between them, a song whispered about, never shown. Jungkook would sometimes tease him during live streams, hinting at a song that made me cry once, but fans thought he was joking. Now, after the performance, those moments suddenly made sense in the days following the showcase. HYB's internal network was flooded with messages. Producers, coordinators, even senior executives couldn't stop talking about how Jimin had turned what was supposed to be a private event into a global headline. One executive reportedly said during a meeting, "We didn't plan this. He just did it. And now the whole world is listening." But behind the headlines and fan theories, there was a quiet tenderness that no press release could capture. The way Jimin moved differently after that night. He smiled more often, spoke softer. It was as if, by sharing the song, he had freed a part of himself. Friends said he started visiting the practice room again late at night, not to rehearse choreography, but to sit at the piano. Sometimes Jungkook would join him, bringing his guitar and 2 cups of black coffee. They wouldn't talk much. They didn't need to. Music was their language. A week later, on a rainy Wednesday, Jimin returned to the same studio where he first wrote Be Mine. The air smelled like dust and rain. He sat by the piano again, tracing his fingers across the worn keys, replaying the melody slowly, as if trying to remember how it all began. Then, without warning, the door opened. Jungkook, dressed in a hoodie, hair damp from the rain, holding a paper bag. He didn't speak at first, just placed the bag on the piano and said, "Bread and coffee. You look like you'd forget to eat again." Jimin laughed quietly, shaking his head. "You still remember." "How could I forget?" Jungkook replied. They sat together in silence for a while, the only sound the soft patter of rain against the window. Then Jimin looked up. "Did you watch it?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Jungkook smiled, eyes soft. "I didn't just watch. I felt it." For a moment, neither spoke. The unspoken weight between them hung heavy. Years of shared history, of unspoken admiration, of the fragile bond that had always lived quietly beneath their public personas. You finally let it out, Jungkook said, his tone almost reverent. You were afraid of that song for so long. Jimin looked down, tracing invisible lines on the piano. I was afraid it sounded too much like me. Maybe that's why it's perfect, Jungkook whispered. There was no need for further words. He reached over, pressed a single note on the piano, and began humming softly, the same harmony he'd added the night Jimin first played Be Mine. Their voices blended for a brief second, faint but pure, like two fragments of the same story finally meeting again. Outside, the rain kept falling. By the end of that week, Be Mine had become an anthem. Though it hadn't been officially released, fan recordings circulated everywhere, whispered versions captured from the showcase, enhanced and looped by passionate armies who refused to let it fade. In Los Angeles, a group of fans organized a street piano event where people from around the world gathered to perform Be Mine together. In Paris, a dancer choreographed a routine inspired by Jimin's live emotion, performing barefoot near the Seine River. The hashtag Be Mine movement began trending across continents. Everywhere, the same feeling. Jimin had given them something real, something alive. Music critics compared his raw vulnerability to icons like Jeff Buckley and Amy Winehouse, artists who bared their souls rather than crafting hits. One American columnist wrote, Be Mine is more than a song. It's a confession disguised as melody. Jimin didn't sing to entertain. He sang to survive. But the person least interested in the noise was Jimin himself. In a quiet message shared through Weverse, he wrote, I didn't expect this. I just wanted to be honest. Thank you for listening even when I couldn't speak clearly. You were patient, and now, I hope the song feels like a place you can rest to. It was simple, humble, deeply him. Behind the curtains of HYB, discussions began about releasing Be Mine officially. But Jimin hesitated. He wanted it to remain untouched, pure, unpolished, like that night when everything broke open. I don't want to perfect it, he told his manager. If I do, I'll lose what it meant. And so, weeks passed with no official version. But the world still listened. The silence between his words became as powerful as the song itself. Months later, during a surprise live stream, Jungkook sat in his home studio with his guitar. The chat filled instantly with comments. Sing Be Mine. Tell us about Jimin. He smiled, adjusting the mic. You guys never forget, huh? He laughed. After a pause, he looked directly into the camera and said softly, Do you know what I realized? Sometimes, you think a song is just music, but then it reminds you who you were when you first heard it. That's what his song did to me. Then he played. Not Be Mine exactly, but something close. A gentle acoustic version, intertwined with his own melody, a tribute. When the stream ended, Jimin posted one emoji on Weverse, Purple Heart. Nothing else. Armies understood everything. It was late December when the final surprise came. HYB announced a limited documentary short titled Be Mine, The Moment. The teaser was just 30 seconds long, black and white footage of Jimin walking through the empty Seoul Arts Hall, voiceover whispering. I thought I was writing a song, but maybe I was writing my truth. The full short dropped on January 1st. It showed his writing sessions, voice cracks, midnight reflections, and silent tears he wiped with the back of his hand while replaying takes. Near the end, the camera captured him smiling softly, looking out at the empty stage, whispering, This is where I finally said it. The world wept again. Even now, months after that single performance, Be Mine remains unreleased, an open wound that fans revisit with reverence. And maybe that's exactly how Jimin wanted it. Not a product, but a memory. Every great artist has a moment when they stop performing and simply exist. For Jimin, that moment came with Be Mine. The song didn't need choreography. It didn't need perfection. It needed only one thing, honesty. And that night, under the quiet lights of Seoul, he finally gave it.